All right, we're all convened. This is wonderful. Just looking out is amazing. Just amazing.
Oh, my God.
Catalyst, disruptor, storyteller, provocateur, founder, creator, artist, leader, mother, grandmother, friend. We are here tonight to celebrate the legacy and impact of the incomparable Shirley Mordine, an exceptionally talented, strong, determined, sometimes just totally frustrating and gifted woman who, for more than a half century, enriched the city of Chicago and the national and international dance scenes through her vision and her fortitude. I am Michael McStraw. I am the executive director of Chicago Dance History Project, and I am your Mister of Ceremonies, and I welcome you to the evening. Shirley Mordine, uncompromising, relentlessly curious, precision in every detail, no small ideas, not a one. The soul of a jazz musician with the intellect and skills of a classical composer. Think of Shirley as the love child of Ella Fitzgerald and Johannes Brahms. Shirley understood that ours is a generational art form, which rests on those who came before and will be passed to those who come next. That's the vertical. Shirley also understood that ours is a community-driven art form. Look at all of you. Community-driven art form with mutual support, respect, and deep relationships that embrace us all. That's the horizontal. My journey into this community and into Shirley's sphere of influence began in 1984 when fellow University of Michigan MFA graduate, my partner in crime, Judy Makita, urged me to move to Chicago. So I did. That was step one. Next, I landed my first professional dancer gig with the Kasha Dance Company, Laura Wade, the artistic director. And shortly thereafter, Laura commissioned Shirley to create art, new work for the company. That was step two. Flash forward to my tenure with Jan Curtin Dancers, and a wonderful solo Jan choreographed for me entitled The Way of My Fathers. Shirley saw that performance and asked me to be a guest artist with Mordine Company. Step three. During my first rehearsals as a guest artist learning Songspiel, Mary Wohl Haan said to Shirley, Shirley, Michael knows how to write grants. Which led to my 3+ years as Mordine Company's managing director. Step four. Thereafter, additional steps, additional roles included work as a Mordine Company consultant, board member, board president, donor, supporter, and always a rabid fan of Shirley's work and Shirley the person. I tell you these things only to illustrate the wonderfully crazy, almost Byzantine interconnectedness of our community and the subtle and enduring impact we have had on one another. I also tell you these things to point out that the Chicago dance community is currently and has been historically fueled by exceptional women, bucking the national and international norm of male-dominated leadership. Chicago, Ruth Page, Catherine Dunham, Maria Tallchief, Shirley Mordine. Need I say more? Not only are we here tonight to celebrate Shirley, but we assemble too to capture more nuanced tale about her legacy and impact. History is best served through the marriage of facts and data with the richness of experience for those who were firsthand witnesses to it. We urge you to help round out the story, the history of Shirley Mordine by sharing your memories and your reflections. And many of you may have seen the ways to do that. You saw on the wall that we had the paper for the Shirleyisms to add to your name and whatever it is that you found special about the language of Shirley Mordine. Then we asked you to visit the Memory Station, which is in classroom 206, where Kristen Klinger from HMS Media will record your personal memory if you so choose. In the small studio, you can write your name on the Shirley wall chart in the wedge or wedges, the big pie chart, that correspond to the nature of your relationship as dancer, student, sponsor, board member, whatever it may have been. And also in the small studio, this idea came about with a discussion with Margie Cole about a way to pick up more detailed information about you and your connection and your history to Shirley. So on that table, you'll find a form. One side is about your experience with Mordine and Company, and the other side is your experience with the Dance Center. You may take a copy, but we'll be sending you a digital form for you to fill out and return to us. And when we have this data, it helps to show the legacy tree that Shirley has brought forth. So I hope you will participate in that. And then lastly, in this presentation, partway through, we're going to have a chance to add a brief anecdote during an open mic segment. Chicago Dance History Project, of course, is recording tonight's celebration. And the information that's provided from all of you, whether tonight or through that form at a later time, will all be incorporated into the final edited video. Ultimately, the recording and all related data will be migrated to the Newberry Library's Midwest Dance Collection, which we're proud to say already houses a huge archival treasure trove of Shirley. Lastly, as we found out in Team Shirley, those of us who helped put this together, tears will come. So we've strategically placed tissues up and down. I think I've got a box down here for me as well. So thank you for being here. Let's roll film, please.
My mom was no ordinary person. She was imaginative, intellectual, sensitive, determined, beautiful, aware, focused. Her success, her prolific output, the life she led and the lives she touched, her accomplishments, it all happened against the greatest of odds. She was born in 1936 in Salt Lake City, Utah, at the Hospital of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Her mother, Fawn Winkler, was from a Swiss-German Mormon farming family that had crossed the plains in the 1800s. Her father, Thomas Fraser Macaulay, came from Scotland via Nova Scotia, eventually arriving in Utah. Tom Macaulay was a married man when he met my grandma. They fell in love and had 2 children, Shirley Ann, my mom was named for the tap star of the 1930s, and her beloved brother Tommy. It would be 5 years before her dad could divorce and her parents marry. My mom's earliest memory was of taking a train ride, escorted by a nun, from Salt Lake City to Oakland, where her father had moved for more lenient divorce laws, and she was the evidence in his trial. Her childhood home was poor, very poor. Her mother worked as a waitress at a coffee shop and in Richmond, California's World War II shipyards. Her father drank a lot and barely worked. There were no books except one, Anne of Green Gables, which Mom read over and over again. She admired the freckle-faced orphan who made her way through a challenging life. Mom slept in a cot in the hallway, not having her own room nor proper bed until she went to college. But there was a lot of lemon meringue pie, canned peaches, pickled beets, and love. Because they had so little to entertain themselves, Mom and Tommy were instinctively imaginative. They spent long hours climbing the ravines of Oakland's Diamond District, pursuing, conquering, winning, and losing fabled crowns and empires. She credited both her and Tommy's lifelong love of theatrics and improvisation to these childhood adventures. In her journal, she wrote, "When I think of my brother and me as children, the following image reveals and holds us. We are flying in a plane over the northern African desert as in an Expurrier novel. It is absolutely dark. The plane is a single engine with a beautiful articulated structure, much like the early planes. We love the flying. We must have crash landed, for suddenly, there we are in that immense desert, the plane broken up in many parts. We must figure out how to put it back together if we are to save ourselves. There are no instructions and no pictures on how it should look. It is up to us to figure it out. Together, we did." Her mother did manage to scrape together tip money for tap lessons, and that was it. Mom found her purpose and passion, not tap specifically, but dance, though she did love Fred and Ginger, Gene Kelly, and especially Donald O'Connor. And she studied ballet at Los Eras Dance Studio in San Leandro. Mom worked hard. In her teens and early 20s, she danced professionally with Anna Halprin and Welland Lathrop. At 20, she traveled to Connecticut College, where she performed in the 9th American Dance Festival. The program included Doris Humphrey, Elwyn Nicolai, Merce Cunningham, and others at the forefront of modern dance. She spoke with gratitude of the times in her life when a single person offered life-shaping help, when someone really saw her capacity, her determination, her possibility, and offered support. Her high school principal, for instance, excused her from class and paid for her lessons at San Francisco Ballet School of Dance. In her teens, she worked as a nanny for professors. They told her she was smart and talented and should go to college. The mother helped her apply to Mills and secure a full scholarship. She loved Mills, her peers, her professors, the learning, the ideas inspired. It was transformative for her. She graduated with honors in 1957 alongside her friends Tricia Brown and Lois Brandwin. Mom adored Lois, and Lois adored Mom. She shares these words. Let me tell you about my dear friend Shirley. She was one of those rare souls who lived life as if there were no tomorrow, reckless in the best possible sense, always ready to embrace whatever challenges arose. And if there weren't any challenges, she created them. Neither of us was endowed with wise parental input, and so in college we came to rely on one another. Where I was careful and disciplined, practicing long hours to become a concert pianist, she dove headfirst into the fluid world of modern dance, inventing her own expressive choreographic style. Lois recalls when my mom met my dad. I watched with admiration and some envy her passionate romance with the dashing, handsome Marine Glenn Mordine, her future husband. Shirley fell hard, and their love was the real deal, very intense. But balancing that intensity with trying to build a career was tough. She struggled to keep her dance life and home life from colliding. Still, somehow, she managed to create her own dance company while rearing 3 children. Amazing how she pulled that off. Pure Shirley, through sheer force of will. Through all the chaos and beauty of her life, we stayed close, Lois says. Shirley's religion was living in the moment with exuberance and vivacity and doing her amazing best in every endeavor. But in the end, it was her sense of humor and joie de vivre that made life fun. How I loved and admired her. It was in a bar on Lakeshore Avenue in Oakland while listening to Dave Brubeck live that my parents met. Instead of heading to New York post-graduation as she had planned, they quickly married, and Mom was pregnant within months. They had 3 kids in 3 years, Alex, myself, and Michael. Michael was born at Fort Benning, Georgia, as my dad would join the Army Reserves when my mom was pregnant for medical coverage for our births. After Michael was born, she developed a staph infection. Of the 7 patients who had it, only Mom survived. In the pictures from that time, 1961 to 62, she looks tired. I can only guess how hard that time of life was for her. Exhaustion from intense illness, her body so essential to her being, drained, and 3 babies in cloth diapers. Though her memory of this period was fuzzy, she did recall that during her long months of hospitalization and fever, she often chased the doctor down the hall with her gown flapping open in the back. That was my mom. They moved back to California for a few years, and then in 1965 left on a Greyhound bus with 3 small kids to Duluth, where she had secured a job teaching at the University of Minnesota. The following year, they moved to Minneapolis, where she continued to teach at U of Minnesota and also worked with Nancy Hauser. Then in 1968, my dad's job brought them to Chicago. We first lived in Rogers Park, and Mom traversed the city, teaching everywhere from the University of Chicago to Urban Gateways programs in Old Town to Evanston Township High School. She earned about $5 a class. This is when another person came along and saw who she was and what she offered. It was the dance patron, Carol Russell, my dad recalls. After taking one of Mom's classes, Carol reached out to Mike Alexandrov of Columbia College and told him he had to meet and hire this woman named Shirley Mordine. Our home was different than my friends' homes. In our household, how she lived took the lead. Her curiosity, exploration, and work prevailed. Notepads were everywhere. her thoughts and inspiration captured and connected to inform her choreography. Meredith Monk, Marie Lewis, and others were house guests. Cage, Bartok, Brahms, and Berlin played as she considered music. Her life was so busy that ice cream for dinner was normal, especially on a hot summer evening. There weren't overt parenting lessons. It's just how it was. She was living her life, working hard, passionately pursuing every opportunity offered. She showed us how to absorb, to listen, to expand, to think, to take risks. She imparted, in her own way, the meaning of life, an artist's life. Mom worked through emotions with movement. She choreographed 5 ecstatic dances after the devastating loss of her brother Tommy to AIDS. When my brother Alex was deployed overseas and out of contact, the piece, I Haven't Heard From You in a While, was created. She could be cool, very cool. She gave me Sly and the Family Stone in 1970 for my 10th birthday. I was the first kid on the block to have bell-bottoms, and she taught my minor bird to say, "Good morning, Mrs. Robinson." And she could be embarrassing, like sunbathing nude on the Adriatic when we were in Yugoslavia with the Mordine and Company residency. I think the combination of coming from so very little, glimpsing death at a young age, her desire to honor the opportunities presented to her, the clarity of what she wanted to do with her life, and her insatiable curiosity formed an unstoppable force, buoyed by a dedicated work ethic. When I'd ask her to slow down, she would say, "I can't, I'm building something," and build she did. We are in the house that Shirley Mordine built, created with colleagues and collaborators she admired and respected, in the big city, big shoulders town she loved. She was very clear she didn't do it alone. She was ever aware of the expansive community that made it happen. Columbia, the dancers, the students, audiences, musicians, the city, foundations, designers, dance advocates, her peers, even the critics. But it happened because, as she said, all I ever wanted to do was make dances. She did love dance, and she also loved Kandinsky, sunflower seeds, the Chicago Cubs, a lively Irish bar, sculpture, the color green, Frankie Valley, her little yellow house with the koi pond, maple walnut ice cream, turquoise jewelry, Saul Steinberg illustrations, the California coast, Sunday sermons at Evanston's Unitarian Fellowship, the movie Brooklyn, her cat Jet. She loved many, many things. She loved her friends. She loved her kids. She loved her granddaughters. Her last years were tough. A brain tumor caused falls. There was breast cancer. And the Alzheimer's distressed her. She was frustrated that she couldn't hold on to thoughts, that her brain was, as she would say, so slippery. But it was impossible to diminish Shirley Mordine. Her big, beautiful vocabulary, her flirty humor, her regal posture and gorgeous legs endured as her mind wandered through her life roles as a mother, a performer, a partner. "Annie," she would say, "you need to put a brush through that hair of yours." A few moments later, she would ask, "Is everything all set for tonight's performance?" And then she would say, "I'm just waiting for Glenn." And she kept choreographing. About 2 years ago, when in rehab after back surgery, I asked Mom what she was thinking about. "My next dance," she said, "is going to be about legs." She paused, then added, "But I promise I won't get on roller skates." Mom's last week, the week she was passing, her body was active. Her arms were moving, her hands shaping the space above her, her legs lifting and stretching. Her breath grew more and more heavy, tired, searching. It was like at the end of a long and exhausting, yet satisfying performance. She once sent me this card with an Anais Nin quote. "Things I forgot to tell you. and that I love you, and that I love you, and that I love you. Same here, Mom. I love you.
Annie is right. Am I there? Try it again. Yeah. There we go. Annie still continues to be right. We are in the house that Shirley built. Shirley saw, Shirley knew, Shirley acted. Moving to Chicago decades ago, children in tow looking for employment, Shirley quickly arrived at an elegant and simple solution. Why not create a place that melds dance education with a formal presenting series and a resident professional dance company? 3 parts of equal merit, each an essential support of the other, and thus the Dance Center of Columbia College was born. Shirley knew that teaching dance and making dance and viewing dance are inseparable from one another. Examine the Dance Center's first performance series, and one immediately suspects where this all might lead. That 1974-75 season was a wonderful combination of national and local companies which brought together contemporary, Spanish, and Indian dance. Shirley acted, and the path was set. Future series included familiar names, all with their respective companies in tow. Margie Jenkins, Bill T. Jones, Ohad Naharin, Garth Fagan, Cleo Parker Robinson, Joe Good, Chuck Davis, and Laura Lubavitch. Established or up and coming, each brought prestige, weight, immediacy to her programming. Shirley understood, too, that to be successful it was imperative that Chicago artists be presented. Joseph Holmes Dance, Jan Curtin Dancers, Bob Eisen Dance, Akasha Dance, Hedwig Dances, Giordano Dance Chicago, Muntu Dance Theater, Chicago on Tap Festival, Lucky Plush, Jump Rhythm Jazz Project, and so forth. You immediately grasp the boldness of Shirley's vision. Diversity and inclusion are ever present, but never simply for the sake of checking a box. Her genius is that an artist's eye and an educator's heart simply brought forth the best the dance field had to offer. Shirley knew, too, that relentless query was essential to the choreographer's craft, and that capable and inquisitive dancers were paramount to what she brought to the stage. And so Mordine & Company Dance Theater came to be in 1969 and brought amazing dance theater to life for over 50 years. The Dance Department of Columbia College, also formed in 1969, has blossomed, evolved, reinvented itself, and flourished ever since. Her unyielding pursuit of truth resulted in the creation of more than 100 sophisticated dance works, thought-provoking dances filled with ideas that have no limit. Her works are enriched by countless collaborations with musicians, composers, costumers, actors, poets, puppeteers, projectionists. Shirley saw, Shirley knew, Shirley acted. This sharp scrutiny applied, too, to those of us who performed with her and were sometimes terrified of her. She was firm. Inhabit, don't parody. Dance with an underlying sense of musicality. What are you doing with your face? Don't mug. Let the gaze mirror what's going on with the rest of your body. Absolute stillness demands great energy, not absence of energy. So you're facing downstage. Who cares? You still need to know what's happening behind you. And form, not shape. I learned this lesson early on using that wrong word. Form. It took me the longest time to understand what she meant. Both words are verbs and nouns, aren't they? For Shirley, they were not interchangeable. Form is a verb, all verb, and no noun. Form demands that every molecule in your body react and adapt to the structure and the needs of the moment. Shirley's work, Arc, which I referenced earlier, created for Akasha, was powered by the interplay between ARC, the curve in space, and ARK, Noah's floating menagerie. We spent what seemed like hours practicing a run from downstage right to upstage left that began low and reached its height with a twist and run back to where you began. The execution needed was almost geologic. Executing it the way Shirley wanted it performed was to imagine yourself filled with sand. And through each microsecond, you marshaled those grains of sand from your feet to the sternum to the top of your head, and you pivoted and you ran back. Form, not shape. I remember too when Shirley was creating 5 ecstatic dances, which was mentioned, in honor of her brother Tommy. I watched as she made Dan Weltner and Paula Fraz repeat a gesture over and over and over again. The choreographic moment was very simple. Dan offered his hand to Paula. Each looked at the hands as they joined, and then they moved slowly downstage in a very quiet walk. "No, don't tilt your head," Shirley yelled. "This is not a sentimental gesture. You tilt your head, it becomes sentimental. Do it. Do it again, and again, and again." And of course, Shirley knew. She was right. Under Shirley's wonderful tutelage, I came to understand that good dancers simply execute the choreography, but great dancers consistently and constantly negotiate time, weight, energy, intent, musicality, the space they occupy with others, and their relationship to the geometry of the stage. In developing dancers and administrators and educators and audience members, no matter the person, Shirley's pursuit was fueled by unstoppable exploration, inquiry, and a desire to share her joy and deep respect for all things dance. I look out at this extraordinary gathering of people, of very talented, curious, highly accomplished, and determined people here in the house that Shirley built, the house that Shirley formed. And I suspect each of you had, to some degree or other, a journey with Miss Shirley very similar to mine. Shirley saw, Shirley knew, and because of her, we acted. Thank you. Thank you, and I now would like to bring to the stage the incomparable Mary Wohl Haan.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you, everybody. I took my first dance class when I was 19 years old as a sophomore at the University of Toledo with the one faculty member they had there, Elaine Valois. She was my dance mother. The following year, she had Toledo become part of the NEA's Artists in the Schools program, and she brought Shirley Mordine. She was a guest artist, and I was so enthralled by the scope and spaciousness of her movement vocabulary that I came to Chicago that summer for the workshop at the Dance Center on Sheridan and Lawrence. She opened her home to me and another student from Toledo, and the workshop was marvelous, with Shirley, Nancy Hauser, Viola Farber all teaching. It was also the summer that many of her dancers left to start Moming. And at the end of the workshop, she asked me to stay and work with her. But with only 2 years of dance under my belt, and coming from a family that put stock in education, me being one of the first of my 11 siblings to go to college, I declined. I went home, finished my senior year, and then I went on to grad school in Salt Lake City. There I met my husband, who wishes he was here. He knows a lot of you. And after finishing my degree, I taught a year back in Toledo. We got married. We spent one more year in Utah. And then we came to Chicago, both of us looking for jobs. As fate would have it, while I was taking a workshop with Nana Scheinflug and the Chicago Moving Company, she was pretty instrumental in this community. I mean, there's a lot of you out there, you know that. A dancer who had just left Mordine Company told me she was looking for a replacement. I contacted her, set up an audition time, and with only her and me in the studio, Okay, remember how scary that was. She asked me to perform a piece, which I did in silence because I didn't have any of the music. And then she gave me some improvisational problems and ideas to play with. And I was hired. This was the summer of 1980. And I joined Tim O'Sleen, Venice Boone, Deb Siegel, Christopher Clark, and David Pershevitz, all newbies. And at the time, we were thankful that Richard Woodbury, Carol Barbaro, Bart Dressler, and others were still around. Yeah. I remember thinking within a very few weeks that fall that I knew in the depths of my being that this was where I was supposed to be, that somehow her movement made sense to me. I stayed with her for 9 amazingly full and rewarding years till we moved our family from Chicago to Colorado. And for a long time, I said I was dragged out of Chicago. I don't think my husband appreciated that, but that's the way I felt. Okay. The expansiveness of Shirley's vocabulary, the articulation and specificity of sensation, the use of theatrical elements, all of these pushed us to embody ideas, teaching us to make the inner outer. Carl mentioned that to me just earlier this evening, and it's like, yeah, you had to figure out what was inside you, what you didn't even know you had, but that she saw, and she had an idea that you could do it. Yeah. Yeah, the work we did with Shirley did more than just shape our aesthetic sensibilities and hone our instruments. Her constant flow of image continually challenged us in choreography, with choreography and ideas that were physically demanding, but also dramatically eloquent. We were her tools, and I believe that through her work, most of us found our own artistic voices. Shirley was such a lifelong learner, always delving into subject matter that piqued her interest, so she could mine ideas that she thought were relevant in the world. She was unapologetic as an artist. And that really, a sister of mine mentioned that to me this week, and she wasn't even here working with her, but she knew this, and it struck me so much that, yeah, artists, we have to be unapologetic about the work we do. There was very little marking of a piece. To quote Yoda, do or do not, there is no try. Not when she was working, forging ahead on an idea. It wasn't always easy, but she was developing performers. She was working to make us artists too. I shared with some of you that I would sometimes catch her looking at what I had just done. I'd get off stage and I'd look over and I'd see this strained expression on her face. And I would wonder why I was born. I had that feeling often, okay? Because I just was not doing what she thought, what she wanted. And I was her tool, No, it wasn't easy. It was just good hard work. And I remember telling some of the younger dancers years ago when I came in for one of her concerts, and I said, stay with her as long as you can. As long as you can, okay? She wasn't always easy to work with because you're gonna get so much. Yeah. Let me find out where I am here. All right. It was good hard work, and I always thought that if my family returned to Chicago, I would ask to work with her again. It was always an honor when she invited me back to perform, especially alongside of whatever new company of dancers she had. I really thank you all for that generosity. She was my mentor and an amazing role model. To use the title of the piece by Maria Chang, she provided a fertile landscape of all the elements it might take to be a working artist. Not that you had to embrace all of them, like she did, but just look at this place and remember the dance center up in Uptown. She did so much administrative work to find grants, to pay us, always advocating to support, to find support wherever she could. She modeled it all, and the foundation she built has been a gift to each of us, as well as the city of Boulder, and this art form that we all hold dear. Think back about who you rubbed shoulders with. I mean, Michael mentioned some of those people, and I have to say that really served me when I did move from here. You know, I think the first week I was in Colorado, I went to a show and I saw Hannah Khan, and I went, hi. You know, because I was a new mother with kids and a new place, and I met you in Chicago at Columbia College. You know? But there were so many artists, so many teaching artists, so many performing companies, both local and from afar, plus the opportunities she really worked to give us. If you wanted to teach, you could. If you wanted to choreograph, if you wanted to present your work, we had a space to do it. So we had her support in doing that. This dance center and what she set in motion is still amazing. She also modeled an array of collaborations with musicians, actors, filmmakers, costumers, set and lighting designers, oftentimes sharing the stage with dance artists of other genres. She was a vital part of this community, and her work helped build this community. She had high standards for herself, her work, each of us, and with those she collaborated. She modeled so much, and I will continually be eternally grateful to my time here at Columbia, my time in her company. I am still in love with everyone I ever performed with, even the ones that are stinkers. And especially for every moment that I had with that woman. Over the years, sending birthday and holiday cards was sometimes all I could do. And though I'm proud of the work that I've done in Colorado, that I've been able to continue to do, I was never able to bring her company to Colorado. I didn't have that kind of clout as a presenter or anything. I've just been an independent artist. That really hurt. Every time she would write me, I couldn't do anything. But the lifeline I had with her has been precious, and I thank her daughter, Annie, for always including me. And inviting me to visit her so I could continue to be in her life, as she will always be mine. Thanks.
Allow me please to introduce you to the incredible Loretta Livingston.
Hello, everyone. I love this image. Shirley in a joyous world. You know, I always recognized Shirley as a genius, but I experienced her as a friend. And it's in the spirit of this friendship that I offer my remarks to you this evening. And I'm not the only one. There are so many people sharing and being grateful. Shirley and I had a chance to become friends through an invitation for me to be a guest teacher at Columbia, a dance center up in Sheridan Road. Shirley didn't know me. I didn't know Shirley. But she vetted me through Bella Lewitsky, an artist based in Los Angeles, for whom I had danced and taught many years. So with the vetting and a leap of faith, Shirley hired me. That was in 1985. I was young. And Shirley was in her prime. She could do anything. She was good at everything. I remember meeting her for the first time in person And she had such a big presence. I felt like the room was closing in on me, this huge energy, but it was just her. She took up a lot of vibrant space. Yeah. It was a challenge for me. I wasn't that experienced yet to deal with freelance contracts. And to sit across from her was challenging. But what made it memorable was her beautiful face and her unique voice. Her voice was articulate and light. I remember thinking, this is a truly exotic person. This is a one of a kind. This is someone in charge of her world. Over the next 10 years, Shirley invited me every year to be a guest teacher at the dance center. Over that long stretch of time, a rhythm developed, coming and going, coming and going, coming and going. And I felt that the rhythm, when I look back, created a kind of spaciousness and ease that allowed Shirley and me to become more familiar. In truth, I was always a guest in Shirley's world. I was a visitor with visitors' eyes. I didn't know the dance community at large, but I was sensitive to the beautiful dancers who were coming to take my classes. Students, company members, freelance professionals. Within all that, I felt I could sense Shirley's vision and drive, because both were huge. I had some time, as a guest always, to notice things. It seemed to me, for example, that Shirley loved artful conversations. She loved ideas. She loved the evolution of an idea. She loved discovery and intention and invention. I learned that Shirley was wickedly funny, wasn't she? She was caring. She was vulnerable. She was brave. She was eloquent. She was quirky. I love quirks because I think they reveal a kind of aliveness, and they can be endearing. I have a couple of favorites in Shirley's quirky category. One is a gesture, and I'll tell you about that, and one is a question. The gesture was that she would take both hands and fluff her hair. Fluff, fluff, fluff. She did it every day, probably more than one time a day. Fluff, fluffing, fluffing, fluffing. And it was her gesture. And the question was that she would ask, no one else in the room, she only did this when it was the two of us there. The question is that she would ask me if I knew how old she was. I did not know what to do with that. No, Shirley, I don't know how old you are. I would just smile, and the thing is that she wouldn't then give me the answer. So I never knew. And then there would be some hair fluffing. Yeah. And what I like about these two quirky things is the everydayness. Everyday, the daily, the repeatable actions that become a person's movement signature. Sometimes the gesture and the hair flipping came at the same event. Shirley and I were well past the initial decade of being friends, and because our work lives were changing, we had to find other ways and other places to be together. In the summer of 2007, we had a rare day together in Southern California, in the beautiful seaside community of Laguna Beach. Shirley looked fabulous. Here we are, I'm looking at her. She gets out of the car, she fixes her clothes, and she fluffs her hair. And she gets really close to me and said, well, you know, what did she say? How old are you? Yeah. Do you know, but she had to have the other part in the front. Do you know? It wasn't just how. Do you know how old you are? No. We had a nice time that day, but it was a very rough year for both of us. Different situations, but they were not nice years. About 3 months after our visit together at Laguna, I received an email letter from Shirley. She wrote, "Hello, Loretta. I feel badly that things haven't gotten better for you. However, I detect courage, clear thinking, and a willingness to endure this period. I feel confident you will come through this and that you will discover a new and bountiful life. I think it is in your nature, a very patient nature, that allows you to survive with consummate dignity." She went on a little bit more and closed with, "Love and admiration, Shirley." And that's what a friend can do, isn't it? Just pick you right up and put you on your feet again. I did make it, and so did she. And we saw each other again, in person. But I knew our days together were dwindling. I knew at some point I would be writing my letters to Shirley in my mind. You know, I wish I could see her just one more time. I could tell her that I learned how old she is. I read it online in the obituary. I would tell her, "Don't worry, you are ageless." I would say to her, "When I look at you, I see a beautiful woman, a remarkable artist, a hilarious comedian, and a truly, truly one-of-a-kind friend." We practiced this.
Original choreography. We've heard a lot about Shirley's family. Bring to the stage now Shirley's granddaughters, Jessie and Neena, to represent the family.
Hi, my name is Jessie, and I'm Grandma Shirley's first granddaughter. This is about a fun announcement. In this life, we have the opportunity to live with meaning, to make something and to make something of ourselves, to leave a mark that is uniquely ours. My Grandma Shirley did that. As an artist and educator myself, I understand how it can be financially challenging to keep at your practice. Money helps, not just practically, but as validation and recognition that what you're doing is seen, is essential, and that you should keep at your passion and purpose. As you learn this evening, our grandmother was periodically touched by a small gesture, a kindness that allowed her to pursue her life's creative purpose so she could leave her unique and expansive mark. In this spirit, I'm proud to announce the Shirley Mordine Dance Maker Fund for contemporary dance choreographers in the Chicago area. A fund recognizing the many hats required to make dance, to help to pay for the essentials in creating and presenting dance, including, but not limited to, music, costumes, lighting, operations, marketing, space, childcare, dancer wages. We're structuring the fund in two parts. The first monies will be awarded in 2026 so people can make dances now, especially now when creative voices are needed in response to unsettling times. A long-term endowment will also be established, vesting over 3 years to create a sustained future for the fund. Our goal is to make access and availability to monies swift and easy. The Shirley Mordine Dance Maker Fund will be hosted by Columbia College and administered by our family and familiar Chicago dance world names, Michael McStraw, Ruel Schmidt, Meredith Sutton of the Dance Center, and others. Our family, my mom, Ann Mordine, and Gary Singh, sister Neena, and myself will establish the fund with a large donation. We're not going to ask for money tonight, but we hope you'll watch for announcements as the fund is established and join us in helping keep Chicago dance makers making dance. And if you're a choreographer, we hope you'll apply when the fund and endowment open. In many ways, the Shirley Mordine Dance Maker Fund is our grandma's resting place. She would be pleased, I think, to know that beyond the amazing life that she led and the contributions to Chicago dance she made, she will continue to support the making of dances. Thank you.
I'm Neena, the second granddaughter. I will now be reading a poem I wrote about Shirley. I don't believe in many things, but if I had to pick, it would be a lifetime before and a lifetime after. A long time ago, I was someone new and precious, and in my youth, I brushed hands with a stranger. This was a past life. In the next, I made a friend, a girl who danced with every step, and we grew up and grew apart. This was a past life. And when we came to this one, she had soft hands, soft eyes, a lovely voice. I sang her a song about cherries one night a year ago, and in that moment, I was self-transcendent, and I knew then we had met before. There's ashes now in my pocket, and when I reach in, I find I, too, am mortal, and perhaps there is no immortal soul. Perhaps we've never met before. And isn't that all the more special? That in my single lifetime, I met a woman whose heart broke open and let me inside. In this next life, we will be without her. But she left fingerprints in the soft body of my soul, and as I drift on into the chaos of things, I think back to dance, to cherries, to past lives.
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you, Neena. All right, here's the promised open mic portion of the program. If we could have some house lights, that would be great. We ask that you do a couple things. Number one, there are a lot of people here, and we would like to have you keep your anecdotes short. Please introduce you by your name and your affiliation with Shirley and or the Dance Center. Again, please be succinct but meaningful, okay? Here we go. Who wants to be first? Who's got, where's? You got the mic. Oh, I've got the mic. Oh, we didn't rehearse this. There we go.
John? Oh, hi.
Hey, John.
Hi, my name is John Hoffman, and I was a dance student at Columbia College, and I was also a brief member of Mordine Company. And a couple of things that were said tonight I wanted to kind of inspire me to speak. One was Mary said that there was no marking, and that was the truth. And I was in learning this piece called Songspiel, and I was partnered with Paula Frage. And there's a section in the dance where the women jump this way and the men grab them by the breasts from behind. And I, out of respect for Paula at the time, grabbed her at her rib cage instead of on her breasts. And Shirley stopped. And she, said, that's not right. I said, well, in the performance I'll do it, but I just don't want to do it in person. And so I'm actually the real reason that Michael was asked to join the company. And then I do want to share just a story about the dance center. And Uptown has changed quite a bit over the years. This was, again, in the early 80s. And I was a student there, and I was walking around the corner to grab the L at Lawrence. And there was an older African-American man that says, "Hey, white boy, what are you doing here? You don't belong here." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I go to school here, just around the corner." He's like, "School?" And I said, "Yeah, the brick building with the fancy arch." And he's like, "Oh, you do belong here." And I did belong there, and there's so many of us that are gathered here today belong because of Shirley's vision, her artistry, and her commitment to the arts in general, but dance specifically. So I wanted to just offer that as part of tonight's gathering. And it's just amazing to me that I've not seen some lovely, lovely people that mean so much to me for like 35 years. And it's so touching to see all of you again, and to also recognize all of the other people that are connected to the dance community. And it's truly, I don't believe the dance community in Chicago would be the same without Shirley. I'm just going to say that. And I believe it's true.
Thank you. Hello. Hello. An African American. Well, my name is Carl Jeffries. I'm a student, also member of Mordine Company. And this is how I came to be. I'm a street dancer back in the 80s. And wow. Darlene.
Love you.
Darlene Blackburn and Jewel McLaurin saw this young man and asked this young man to attend Columbia. And when I attended, I was afraid of Shirley because did not know that people was asking her to allow me to be in her company. So there was an audition from New York, and I made it. So she took me in the room, and she stopped me. She said, "People would take advantage of me." I said, "Keep talking." She said, "I'm gonna offer you something. I'm gonna offer you company scholarship to dance with me." I called my mom and said, "I'm not going to New York." And I'm glad I didn't. Because as a black man, she made me realize and scared me for 2 months. She said, "Carl, why do we dance?" I don't know. I know break dancing. She said, "We dance from within, not outside." She said, "There's a whale on the shore, and it washed up to the sea. Get out on the stage and be the whale." You can only imagine how afraid I was. Here's a person who I respect and honored, asked me to be in her company. And she made me dance from within, not without. She made me realize, she said, "You're a black man in my company." I said, "Yes, ma'am." She said, "What does color mean?" We take color and we perform, and we blend it together. Children play with coloring books. In my company, you blend in with our color. For that, I'm honored. Mike, Mary, Jackie, Paula, all of you all, to only imagine that my life has changed as an artist. I went around the world with Shirley Mordine from the south side of Chicago, who talked to me personally about things you can only imagine that I would not share, that I would take to my grave as an African American, to perform with her, to touch over 30,000 children.
I met this man when I was 17 on this stage. And Loretta Livingston, where are you? You don't remember me, but you changed my life. You changed our lives because you chose the two of us to dance together in your piece. And it was 110. And there was no air conditioning.
Wow.
And we sweat and sweat and sweat. And your voice came through our vessels and cleansed our souls so that we could speak truth and heal, not ourselves and not each other. It started there. But this path, this ripple effect, it's beautiful, and I'm full of gratitude to be the vessel, not for just dance, for your work, Loretta, for Shirley's work, Carl, for ours, but for eternity, and so I'm just grateful. And Mary.
That's a very difficult act to follow. I met Shirley 50 years ago. I was in a dance class in Minnesota, and there was this very strange woman in the corner watching things like this, and she invited me to come to Chicago, and she gave me a life in the arts. Everybody in this room was a recipient of her gift of a life in the arts. I have my life partner and best friend and mother of my children, an entire career was a gift from this woman, and the power she brought. She was a pain in the ass. And for a lot of her life, that's a burden she carried as a woman that a man wouldn't have had to carry. And I think it's important to recognize that she stood up for what she wanted and what she needed and what would make her art, and she created a world and a structure and all this to make that possible, and in doing so, made of all this possible. And I heard the term gratitude. You can't say it enough, and I heard the term ripples. We are the ripples from that giant pain-in-the-ass stone. It was Shirley, and I can't thank her enough.
So I just, my first dance with Richard, I got to do that. Had to do it. Seen him in 35 years. Yes.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Norman Alexandroff, and my father was president of Columbia College from 1962 to 1968, when my father hired Shirley, he had no intention of starting a dance program. He didn't really understand dance. My grandfather, who was president of Columbia from 1944 to 1959, told my dad, whatever you do, avoid mayonnaise and Russian dance. My dad had lunch one day with somebody named Carol Russell. She was an arts patron in Chicago. He thought he was going to ask her to give money to Columbia. Carol, who was a student of Martha Graham's, said, "I've met a remarkable young woman. She's a teacher in Minnesota. She wants to come to Columbia. You've got to hire her." And my dad brought her in, and Shirley, as he said, was a knockout. He just was totally charmed with her and gave her an opportunity to start the dance center at Columbia College. She started a theater before the one on Sheridan in Uptown, which was called the Wells Street Theater, which was actually at Belmont and Sheffield, where the Vic Theater is. That was their original place they were. You know, you have to remember in 1968, Chicago was kind of a rough and tumble place. It resembles nothing like it does today. It was, you know, just a hard scrabble place. It was not known for the arts at all. You know, it was seen as too provincial for creating serious art. In 1968, Martin Luther King had been killed. The west side of Chicago went up in flames. There was the Democratic National Convention, and into this scene, Shirley rode. And you know, she built the dance center, as everybody has talked about tonight. She really established dance in Chicago as an art form. Again, there were not a lot of dance companies in Chicago at the time. It was not thought of as a serious place for dance. She built the reputation of Chicago for dance. She elevated Chicago as a serious place for the arts. There's not many people who can say they had that kind of contribution to building the city of Chicago as a reputation and as a cultural force. She did all of that. She helped build Columbia College into what it was 7 or 8 years ago before it became what it is today. Yeah, it's a remarkable story. So thank you for an opportunity to share that. She touched my life in lots of different ways, and she really made Chicago, Columbia College a much better place. Thank you.
John Hoffman, where are you? Come on. Anyway, I want to talk about Shirley's musicality. And Michael touched on it a little bit, but all of you that have danced for her know that Shirley has an inherent physical musicality and rhythm, but she couldn't always translate it to her dancers. And so we all had to take company class every day. You know, it's the only way to learn Shirley. And she would be demonstrating and counting 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Winston Damon would be in the corner like, figure out what she was talking about, and then dreading the day Winston didn't show up, remember that? And you saw in one of the pictures, the dancers were accompanying themselves on drums, and so Shirley takes the drumsticks and she's gonna accompany us. And she oh, it was hilarious. But anyway, and then one of the last pieces that I did with her, she brought the music out. She was so excited about this music, and it was all koto drums. And there was no musical landmarks at all. Oh my God, no. And Jenny saw, thank God, was our musical translator. But what happened was she taught all of you that danced for her and myself that inherent musicality in the body, that the body
is the music. And music was really an accompaniment. So when we went to Australia, and one of the biggest gigs we ever had, 6,000 people on a hillside, and we're performing, and the tape, remember tape, Richard? Yes. The tape broke in the middle of the performance, silence. But the company, we kept going, we kept doing everything that we were supposed to do, and boom, the music came back on, and we didn't miss a beat. And we finished the piece, and she was amazing. I mean, we would do a phrase, and she'd put the music on, and it would match perfectly. And I never knew how she did that, but I carry that to this day as a gift from her. Thanks.
Oh, thank you. I'm young today. Hi, I'm Melissa. I started dancing with Shirley in 2010, I think. I was a part of Shirley's last company and a part of the creation of Shirley's last work. And I started dancing in Chicago in high school, which was a really fun experience. My first dance teacher was Lisa Willingham, or Johnson Willingham now, a former A.L.E. dancer. And so I got a ton of connections. I immediately was offered a work-study program at Joel Hall, and I got to take awesome classes for like wiping down mirrors. Melissa Thodos offered me a position in a student company and teaching opportunities and a scholarship to her intensive that I was incredibly unqualified for. And I just got all of these opportunities, and it was exciting and fun. And after college, I auditioned for, someone I was always in complete awe of, Shirley Mordine. And she immediately told me that it was completely inappropriate for me to be auditioning for a professional company when I was not at a professional level. And she suggested that I take some classes. And, I took that as a bit of a challenge. And, the second time I auditioned for her, I'm happy to say I landed the gig. And what ensued afterwards was just an incredible experience throughout many years. And, the first few years of working with Shirley was a lot of what y'all have already described, of like really intense rehearsal process. We never got to mark anything. We cried afterwards. We always thought we were about to get fired. And, throughout my experience dancing with Shirley, I also got to see a different side of her as the years went on, and working in her last piece, Collisions, starting to grapple with her aging and her understanding of like what the end of her life was going to be like, and getting to see a new vulnerable side of her as she understood, what stage, and as she struggled to like remember the piece. I think her first rehearsal director that she ever worked with. She allowed me to sometimes run rehearsal, and we would meet once a week at Baker Square. She would make me order a pie, and she would only order coffee, but I had to have pie. And we would talk through, what rehearsal was going to look like, and she would like try to remember what stage of the process, and like what went after what, and we would go through that. But then we would also drift into conversations about life. I got to traveled to India with her and Hema as a collaborator, and in this final piece also work with Ayako, and she was dealing with a lot of understanding like what she wanted her legacy to look like, and I feel so honored to have been a part of those conversations with her too. And her voice is always going to be in the back of my mind for the rest of my life, and I am so grateful that I get to hear her every day.
In the interest of time, just do this one more, okay? Come on up.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Fred Simon, musician. I was making a racket in there with my friends, my wife and I. while you're trying to talk. I first met Shirley, I'm thinking it's about 55 years ago. I was in high school at Evanston Township High School. She taught there, but I didn't meet her at first as a teacher. My composition and jazz teacher, Don Owens, hooked us up because she was looking for somebody, like a musical intern, somebody she didn't have to pay. To play some music on little storefront gigs on Lincoln Avenue or in Old Town, and all kinds of interesting things. I think once at the Fermi Lab, remember that. But the first concert that, and this stays with me for a particular reason, some storefront theater, kind of was like an apartment building or something, I don't know. But anyway, it was a piece called Femme, and she was a solo. She had mattress springs, with no material on, just the springs, set up vertically in the back, and she would dance out in front of the audience, and then every once in a while she would run back and throw herself against the bed springs, and it would propel her back, into the space. And the costume, it was a nude leotard and tights with holes cut out, and where the holes were cut out was fur. Man, I mean, it scared the shit out of me. In the best way possible. Because, Shirley could be scary. And that was a scary costume. But anyway, I was in the back, kind of off to the side, but I guess I could be seen from the audience where I was watching Counting the Wings. There weren't no wings, And at the end of the piece, before she left the stage, she turned to me and said, "Who told you could be in the piece?" Oh man, did I feel bad. And Glenn, talked her down, and he said, "Don't worry about it." And everything. Anyway, I went off to school, came back in 1976. Called her up and got a gig accompanying dance classes, all kinds of great experiences, including 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's in 7. But the experience was just wonderful. And then we kind of drifted apart. I went on to do other things, formed a band, made some records, went on the road, all kinds of interesting experiences. And then, maybe I think 2018 or 19, she called me up and out of the blue, really, and said, "Let's meet for coffee." It wasn't at Baker Square, but I'm working on this piece, and I've got some music by Vijay Iyer called I can't remember, break something. Anyway. And then I need some more music to finish the piece. This is Collisions. And so I composed music for that, recorded it, did another piece that was a collaboration called A Line Through, which was a really interesting collage of different kinds of music. Yeah, that was really something. That was fun. But it just, I'm full of, the word gratitude is coming up again. For my experience early, and then to have come back into the fold later, and I'm still, really happy to be working with Danielle and Emily and Melissa on some new things, and hopefully on into the future. Because my name is Fred, which begins with F, there are words that come to mind. I mean, you could probably apply words from any letter in the alphabet to Shirley, but she was fierce. She was ferocious. She was formidable. She had fortitude. She was funny. And she was an artist, and you could tell she ain't fucking around. this is life. This is, really, what it's all about, and I'm grateful.
Thank you, Fred. I lied, we're going to let one more incredible VIP come to the microphone here.
I'm Carol Bobrow and was in her first company after the moment. But I just want to say, there was something wild about her, and she needed to do this. And for a genius female in a little art form like dance in the Midwest, coming from what she'd come from, there wasn't enough. There wasn't enough to make that happen. And I want to thank her 3 children, and Annie, and how, we're talking about gratitude, and everyone here, I wouldn't be who I am if I hadn't come through Shirley. And I know that that's true for so many of you, and we're so grateful. How grateful is Shirley to have Annie, who, as a woman, could come around and look back at her mother's generation and her mother's genius and what she had to claw through to make this. Where are you, Annie? Oh. Right. I got this acronym once. It wasn't easy. But this woman, there's her mother in her, and that she has the wisdom and compassion to come through all that herself as a child, and to brought everybody here today. I hand it to you.
Thank you, Carol. And thanks everyone who shared. We next have an excerpt from an interview that Shirley had done with the Chicago Dance History Project back in 2016. My predecessor, Janae Kutcher, was the one who had done the interviewing for the oral history archives that we collect. This segment is from an interview that's about an hour and a half long, so we've trimmed it down through the goodwill and skill of Christine Klinger of HMS Media, interspersed with rep and with some photos. And so let's roll a film on this one.
My mother took me to my cousin, who was a beautiful tap dancer, and she taught me tap dancing on the linoleum floor in her family kitchen. And then she took me to a neighborhood dancing school, Alice Zwillinger, this wonderful Hungarian woman, and she was so into politics and reading. I just watched this woman who was informed and was a reader and politically aware of things. And then from there, someone took me to Timoff's studio in San Francisco. Was a ballet master. So then I went to the San Francisco Ballet School for a good 2 years, and someone said, although I did very well, they said, Shirley, you're not a ballet dancer, you're a modern dancer. Go check out Anna Halprinwell and Lathrop. So I did. I went to their studio. This is it. I'm in the right place. And so I studied with Anna and Welland, but I stayed with Welland really about 10 years. And during that time went to Mills, and then left to go to the University of Minnesota for 3 years before I came here. Mike Alexandrov wanted to start a theater program at Columbia College. And so I started teaching the dance class at Columbia. It really got to be quite well known, just this big class that was going on. So I just kind of gradually pulled away and started my own productions and went from there. And during that period is when I came to know Donna Sugarman and Susan Kimmelman and Tom Jarumba, who was teaching at the Art Institute. So we made our first piece together, and it was called Journey. And it was really quite successful. It caught a lot of attention. Some of those early pieces, really people began to come, and I mean from St. Louis, and people were drawing a lot of attention because I think they were some of the first really contemporary experimental work that really went on here. And I make that claim, but I think there's some truth to that. Tongues was another piece that really drew a lot of attention. And we performed that in what was our really first really nice space. It was an old photography studio that the college rented out, that both the theater and the dance program that's where we were located. That was the nucleus of the first company, the Chicago Dance Troupe. From there, we moved to the church on Kenmore and Barry. It's a church. And we worked there for a while, both the theater and the dance program. In that space is when I got to know Henry Threadgill. He was part of the AACM on the South Side, and he was one of the very first composers who worked with us in a piece there. So we were there for a while. I think that we were in a school up on School Street, and then Donna Sugarman, who was probably the first member of the company. Donna Sugarman's father, he purchased a building on Sheridan Road for us to use, and Columbia paid the rent for us to be there. And that became the first real location for the dance center. What was so interesting about the dance center all those years, that at the same time I was working as a creative artist, I was building an instructing program and also thinking of presenting and curating. So it had all the facets of the art form in that one space. And that was really awfully good. And the next thing I know, who shows up? Jan Urquhart and Amy Osgood, pretty close to that. And we started building from there. And we made a marvelous piece together I call Three Women. And as time went on, we would tour. Eventually, over time, invited Richard Woodbury to come and join the company. And Ken Bowen. I always loved to choreograph, and I've always choreographed. So I just got a group of people, started making independent work. And then when I got this offer to come and begin teaching at Columbia, it was like these threads began to work right together. I could sense how they could connect and support each other, whether it was performing, teaching, presenting, all those elements, and how that could benefit the entire student body of the dance center. And the college too. But it's like I didn't have an idea up front. I just, as things happen, I could begin to put them together like you would make a dance. I simply wanted an environment where it was the best environment for the creative being. Because my first love is always choreography, and I love performing. So it was one of finding a way to have all those elements interact with each other. It was, as you would work as a choreographer or anyone inventing something. It's not that I had some big master plan. I just really sensed as I went along, who's a good teacher? Oh, look at these people, look at these dancers out here in the space, and guest artists coming in. And it was such a wonderfully rich and rewarding environment. Let's keep this going. The whole spirit of Columbia, when Mike started, just invented the college all over again, it was one of being revolutionary. It was one of setting a new sensibility of what art was and the purpose of it. And I loved that. I just loved it. So I always tell my students and people I work with, be about something larger than yourself. Not just about yourself, but that has a larger purpose. And it was very exciting to have the opportunity to build that. And as time went on, we began to really build the presenting season. One I really was proud of was the African American tradition in American modern dance. Brought in Bill T., Kevin Aiga, Jeff's company, and from that is when he decided to stay here. And I went to Israel, I went to France, you name it. I went all over the place curating companies to come in. I started many mentoring programs, and I would take like 2 or 3 young artists in a year and present them at the dance center, not professional touring companies, and I'd give them a stipend to present their work. I have great memories of collaborators I've worked with, starting with Henry Threadgill, Bill Russo, the famous composer, Woman Question, Richard Woodbury. Also, Thin Ice was a beautiful piece, a duet that he composed the score for. And Hema Rojakopolan doing Push to the Edge. Michael Montenegro, the puppeteer. We did Anamari, a piece at the church here in Evanston. He created these puppets that we activated, just physically choreographed work with as well. I remember doing a site-specific work at the Dubuffet sculpture where we built a ramp around it. People like Brian Sainer and Luca Pazza, the marching band for I Haven't Gone There. And that was really fun. Came from the Francis Bacon line. The artist's job is to lead us to unknown places. So I read a whole series of stories from Jewish shtetls in Eastern Europe, and based it on the Commedia dell'arte principle of traveling to discover new places, what have you. I've done quite a few pieces with Sean Decker. One was All at Once, which was built on simultaneity. Life Speak. I had the dancers tell a story, and Sean Decker, he edited the story and so that it wasn't obvious, but with the music, etc. It was really a very successful piece. Raw Deal. That kind of came out of my readings of Studs Terkel. And Studs actually interviewed me at one time. And he seemed to know quite a bit about dance, but that it was just a whole suite of jazz pieces. I love to make funny things. I made a whole suite of cartoons.
I don't care what they think of me.
They usually have some kind of satirical tone to them. And another piece I love very much, Kurt Weill, I made the Songspiel. I've always been fascinated with World War I especially. The tension, not only militant, but between male and female, and the militantism and all that of World War I. Edge mode, where it came from a line from an author, we're careening on the edge and there's no one at the wheel, is the line. So it had that sense of really pushing it to that level.
I set out to see the world. Should have arrived somewhere by now. Might have taken some wrong turns.
Cast by the Sun. It was based on my reading of just light and shadow. I picked up a book about Leonardo da Vinci. And the statement was at the very beginning, the first drawing of a man was caused by the sun casting a shadow on the wall. Light and shadow and play. So it's like that. You get a little spark, a little clue where something's going, and then you pick up or take it away, but you kind of see your way through that. And I try to deal with not with things that have a particular interest in me, but I think particular interest and curiosity about the time we're in. So it's a contemporary sensibility also. Sometimes when I'm teaching composition, one of the things I'll do is we'll sit in a circle and I'll say, everyone, think of a story you want to tell. And go sit over, you tell that story. And go back about 3 feet. Go back 20 feet. Go back. Now, look at the gestures you're making. And what words can you actually leave out, and what do you want to keep, so it doesn't have to be literal in that sense. And before you know it, people are making these beautiful dances that come from themselves. They're not just some abstract piece moving, but their voice is coming from within them. I'll know something's going on out of what I've sensed or observed, and I do a lot of reading and thinking and my own research and thinking about it. And once I begin to sense something that I'm really curious about, I can put a finger on it and let it gel. Then I start playing with movement, and I start thinking, what collaborated with who would that be? Who would work well with this particular piece? And so that I try to build all those things simultaneously. Nothing gets done. And a lot of working with my dancers is I really teach them, hopefully, how to be damn good improvisers and how to take part in the choreography itself. And I shape it with a lot of their participation. It's not me saying, do this, but it's that give and take. I am so amazed with the incredible dancers that kind of grew out of this experience, like Mary Wohl Haan in Boulder, Scott Putman, Crenley Guzman, Joanna, same planet, Colleen Halloran, Darty McGinley-Gallup, and she was an extraordinary performer. I love Ayako's work. Judith Makita in Cincinnati. I could go on and on. It was amazing just working with all those people, and I'm so proud that they did so well. Over the years, I think to a great extent, we've had a really consistent audience. A lot of people come and see us over and over again. I don't do the kind of work that's going to bring in a whole lot of money, or that isn't my interest. I don't know how to do anything else. And I remember, what was it? I was in such a terrible state, and I said, Shirley, just do the next step, the next step, the next step, and I got through it. But I've lived my whole life that way, coming out of my background. I really had to just stay with it and just tough it out. The thing that keeps me going is the possibility that I can make another dance, that I do have something else to say or do. It's honoring the poetics of your existence.
Isn't it marvelous that we get to experience Shirley's voice and her thoughts on a day like today? There's a lot of people to thank, and I'd like to have Jessie come up with me. Oh, you're gonna come up. This is a surprise.
Are you gonna, you
go last. I'll go first.
No,
You're doing that thing? Okay, I'll do this thing. So we want to thank Fred Simon Trio with Sarah Allen on drums, Kurt Blay on bass and bass, and Fred on piano. Kristen Klinger from HMS Media, who invested hours and hours compiling our amazing imagery, and as well as everyone at HMS for being the chroniclers of Shirley's work over these years.
Dance Center, we'd like to thank Dirty. And Luciano, who helped coordinate this evening, this amazing evening, including tuning the piano, and running tech, Roel and Meredith, for their invaluable advocacy, behind-the-scenes efforts, and who are actively working with us on establishing the Shirley Mordine Dance Maker Fund.
Loretta Livingston and Mary Wohl Haan for traveling so far to be here tonight. We have our team from the Chicago Dance History Project, Sean Rafferty and Sidne Gard. Allison Hinderleiter and the Newberry Library for their exceptional partnership in honoring, preserving, and archiving the broader Chicago dance community's history and Shirley's history in particular.
The photographers, all this amazing photography you've seen this evening, Bill Frederking and Andy Flaherty, Chuck Osgood. Chuck, who I've known since I was, 13, Chuck? We had adventures in Yugoslavia, including getting pulled over by the police and sweating out a day at the local police station before there was internet and fax to get his press credentials verified. Yeah, thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Andy.
Andy, we also want to thank you for being the photographer tonight. Thank you very much. Phil Martini and Danielle Gilmore, company alum and dear supportive friends, Emily, Melissa, all of you for having volunteered and helped with the setup. And of course, Bert Gall, who was Mike Alexandroff's right-hand person and was instrumental in advocating for Shirley at every step of the way. Thank you to all of you for having shown up. This has been just a heartfelt, wonderful balm here on this day.
Huge thank you to Michael. Such gratitude for kind and generous and loving and just huge friendship, heart of friendship. Just thank you so much for steering us through this. Thank you on behalf of my family, everybody, for being here and for contributing to the beauty and the productivity and the meaning of my mother's life. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more video treat for you. I think you're gonna love this. Afterward, go back to the lobby, more reminiscing and celebration, and some of Shirley's favorite treats, ice cream, lemon tarts, baklava, and shortbread cookies. Enjoy, thank you.
feast your tear-dim eyes on tomorrow's clear blue skies. If today your heart is weary, if every little thing looks gray, just forget your troubles and learn to say, tomorrow is a lovely day. The front page of your paper is bound to make you sad, especially if you're the worrying sort. So turn the front page over when news is not so bad. There's consolation in the weather report. It's a lovely day tomorrow. Tomorrow is a lovely day. Come and feast your tear-dimmed eyes on tomorrow's clear blue skies. If today your heart is weary, if every little thing looks gray, just forget your troubles and learn to say, tomorrow is a lovely
Ask all those who participated or performed or been a designer or a technician or what have you with Mordine Company to stand. That's what I was going to do. But you saw all those people. A critic not too long ago said, well, Shirley, what do you think about 40 years? And I thought, the first thing that came to my mind was the periods, were the periods that happened historically all along. And within those periods, the groups of people that worked with me. I just remember so clearly who was in that dance and that dance and that, in those periods. And the point I'm making here is the company is what it is because of all those peoples in successive periods who contributed to help evolve and clarify what we are and what we do. So I owe a great deal of debt to all of you who have taken part. Thank you.
Okay, sure.